Morning and welcome to this week's assembly. Today we're welcoming children from year R1 and 6 back into school, and I know some of you will be watching in your classrooms right now, and it's lovely to see you back in the building. For those of you who are still at home, I hope you're all well, safe and working hard and still engaging as much as you can with the work your teachers are setting on Show My Homework. The weather's not been quite so good this week, but I'm sure you're still managing to get outside for walks, and hopefully you've even managed to see some of your family as you now can meet up in small groups. Okay, this week I've got a story for you which is a bit of a longer one. It's a story called Weslandia, and it's something I've used many times during my teaching career, followed by a little craft activity which hopefully will give you a game to play with during these wet days. Okay, let's start with the story. Weslandia. Of course he's miserable, moaned Wesley's mother. He sticks out. Like a nose, snapped his father. Listening through the heating vent, Wesley knew that they were right. He was an outcast from the civilization around him. He alone in his town disliked pizza and fizzy drinks, alarming his mother and the school nurse. He found football stupid. He refused to shave half his head, the hairstyle worn by all the other boys, despite his father's bribe of extra pocket money. Passing through his neighbourhood, 2 styles of housing, garage on the left and garage on the right. Wesley alone dreamed of more exciting forms of shelter. He had no friends, but plenty of tormentors. Fleeing them was the only sport he was good at. Every afternoon his mother asked him what he'd learnt at school that day. That seeds are carried great distances by the wind, he answered on Wednesday. That each civilization has its staple food crop, he answered on Thursday. That school's over and I should find a good summer project, he answered on Friday. As always, his father mumbled, I'm sure you'll use that knowledge often. Suddenly, Wesley's thoughts shot sparks. His eyes blazed. His father was right. He could actually use what he'd learnt that week for a summer project that would top all others. He would grow his own staple food crop and found his own civilization. The next morning, he ploughed a plot of earth in his garden. That night, a wind blew in from the west. It raced through the trees and set his curtains snapping. Wesley lay awake listening. His land was being planted. 5 days later, the first seedlings appeared. You have almighty bedlam on your hands if you don't get those weeds out, warned his neighbour. Actually, that's my crop, replied Wesley. In this kind of garden, there are no weeds. Following ancient tradition, Wesley's fellow gardeners grew tomatoes, beans, Brussels sprouts, and nothing else. Wesley found it thrilling to open his land to chance and invite in the new and unknown. The plants shot up past his knees, then his waist. They seemed to be all of the same sort. Wesley couldn't find them in any book. Are those tomatoes, beans or Brussels sprouts? Asked Wesley's neighbour. None of the above, replied Wesley. Fruit appeared, yellow at first, then blushing to magenta. Wesley picked one and sliced through the rind to the juicy purple centre. He took a bite and found the taste an entrancing blend of peach, strawberry, apple pie and flavours he had no name for. Ignoring the shelf of cereals in the kitchen, Wesley took to breakfasting on the fruit. He dried half a rind to serve as a cup, built his own squeezing device and drank the fruit's juice throughout the day. Pulling up a plant, he found large tubers on the root. These he boiled, fried or roasted on the family barbecue, seasoning them with a pinch of the plant's highly aromatic leaves. It was hot work tending his crop. To keep the sun off, Wesley wove himself a hat from strips of the plant's woody bark. His success with the hat inspired him to devise a spinning wheel and loom on which he wove a loose-fitting robe from the stalk's soft inner fibres. Unlike jeans, which he found scratchy and heavy, the robe was comfortable, reflected the sun and offered opportunities for pockets. His schoolmates were scornful, then curious. Grudgingly, Wesley allowed them 10 minutes apiece at his mortar, crushing the plant's seeds to collect the oil. The oil had a tangy scent and served both as suntan lotion and mosquito repellent. He rubbed it on his face each morning and sold small amounts at steep prices to his former tormentors. What happened to your watch? Asked his mother one day. Wesley admitted that he no longer wore it. He told the time by the stalk that he used as a sundial and had divided the day into 8 segments, the number of petals on the plant's flowers. He adopted a new counting system as well, based likewise upon the number 8. His domain, home to many such innovations, he named Weslandia. Uninterested in traditional sports, Wesley made up his own. They were designed for a single player and used many different parts of the plant. His spectators looked on with envy. Realising that more players would offer him more scope, Wesley invented other games that would include his schoolmates, games rich with strategy and complex scoring systems. He tried to be patient with the other players' blunders. August was unusually hot. Wesley built himself a platform and took to sleeping in the middle of Weslandia. He passed the evenings playing a flute he'd fashioned from a stalk, or gazing up at the sky, renaming the constellations. His parents noticed Wesley's improved morale. "It's the first time in years he's looked happy," said his mother. Wesley gave them a tour of Weslandia. "What do you call this plant?" asked his father. Not knowing its name, Wesley had begun calling it Swist from the sound of its leaves rustling in the breeze. In the same way, he made up names for his new fabrics, games and foods until he'd created an entire language. Mixing the plant's oil with soot, Wesley made a passable ink. As the final part of his summer project, he used the ink and his own 8-letter alphabet to record the history of his civilization's founding. In September, Wesley returned to school. He had no shortage of friends. And that's the end of the story. Okay, now time for this week's craft activity. And this week we're going to be making some finger puppets, and they're going to be in the shape of birds. It's very, very simple this week. You're not going to need much equipment, just a piece of paper, and it actually could be scrap paper, and a pair of scissors. Okay, when they're finished, your birds are going to look something like this, just to give you an idea of what we're ending up with. And they're going to go on your fingers, and you can make little puppet shows, something like this. Okay, here we go. So we need our A4 piece of paper, and we're going to start this week by cutting it in half. So we're going to fold the paper in two, just like so. And then taking your pair of scissors, we're going to cut the paper in half. We don't need as much this week as our finger puppets are quite small. So you could make 2 from 1 piece of paper. Okay, when we're finished cutting it in half, I'm going to pop 1 piece to one side for the moment, and I can use that to make my second puppet later on. Now we're going to start off in the same way we normally do by creating a square. So in just the same way, we're going to fold up our corner like so, and then cut off the rectangle to one side with a pair of scissors. And again, if you're not particularly confident with a pair of scissors, it might be that you ask someone to help you with this. Okay, when we've finished that, pop the scissors and the rectangle to one side. We're not going to need those anymore. Now if we open up our paper, we should have a square, just like so. Now the first step, we're going to fold in to create a kite shape. So we're going to fold this edge here right into the middle crease, just like so. And try if you can to get a really pointy end, as this will be the tail to your bird. You want it to be nice and pointy. Now we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. So we're folding this crease here into the middle to create a kite shape. Make sure again we're running our fingers nice and firmly along the crease line so we don't want it to fall apart. Okay, now we're going to take our kite and fold it in 2, just like so. And we now want the straight piece at the top, or the straight edge at the top, and the pointy piece at the bottom. And this is the only tricky bit. We're going to fold in half now, but we're not actually going to create a crease line. So I'm taking both the corners here, and I'm just making sure they match. And I'm just going to squeeze with my fingers just to create a little mark halfway along our bird. Now open it up, and you can see here, that was my halfway point. And I need to create a fold from the halfway point down to this point here. I'm actually going to leave my finger on the halfway point so I don't forget where it is, and I'm going to fold across and down like so, and then I am going to run my finger along the crease line just to make sure it's nice and firm. Okay, just like that. I'll open it up just so you can see. So from here, the halfway point, right down to that pointy piece on the corner. Okay, now we need to flip our bird over and we're going to wrap that up. So we're folding it up, almost wrapping that triangle all the way up to the top. And then turn it over again, and we're going to wrap it over again and very firmly push down on the crease line. And then the final bit is to take this very small piece here and we're just going to tuck it underneath there and make sure that it's in and down nice and firmly. And there we have it. Now if you look at the bottom, you can open it up, pop your finger inside, and that's your beak right at the front. And now for the fun part, the decorating. And I've chosen to decorate mine in two different ways with two birds I think are really nice and bright and colourful. And I could create my own puppet show with these and maybe record a little movie. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the story and the craft activity this week. It's really lovely to see some of you back in school, and for those of you who are still at home, we can't wait to welcome you back as soon as that's allowed. Now, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be asking different teachers from the primary team to have a go at a different assembly, as I'm now in school every single day. So you may see some different faces over the next few weeks, but I will still be popping up with my normal assemblies as well. Have a great week, take care, and we'll see you very soon.